Have you ever had the thought that nothing is working? I'm not cut out for this. Maybe this path isn't for me, especially as an entrepreneur. And I also think as a woman too, potentially, this really haunts us women, probably more so than men. I definitely had this thought when I first started as an entrepreneur. And I'll kind of tell you the story of how I feel like I ended up in this tangled mental mess. I was a very high achieving person. Growing up, I had one job and one job only, baby, and that was to perform, okay? I had to perform in school. It hits. You too? I had to perform in school. Like, it didn't have to. It was just expected, right? Like, we were the Days. That was my maiden name. We were the Days, and this is how it rolled, baby. Performed in school and sports. I wasn't allowed just to be on the team, okay? I had to be the performer of the team. And looking back, I am so incredibly thankful because it gave me so many just skill sets to develop my character until who I am today. So I worked so hard in school and high school to get into college, got into my dream college. Then I worked so hard in college to just keep up, to be honest, with everybody else and to get my degree and to get, good grades. And then I worked so hard to get the job. And then I sat in the cube of my first job and I was like, what? Like, this is it? And so then I decided to try my swing at entrepreneurship, and it was way harder than I thought it, quote unquote, should be for me. Like, I would see other people and I'm like, it's hard for them, but it won't be hard for me. I'm super likable. I can talk to anybody. I can, turn it on if I need to. I can totally make this thing work, but it was so much harder than it should be. And so then I started to kind of get these messages from society and just other people's content and just little sly marks from other mentors that I had from females saying things like, well, it doesn't really matter anyway. Like, you're going to end up being a mom and having kids, and it just isn't that important. And it was really, really hard because I'm like, wait a minute. So I spent my whole life being a high achiever, and then you get to this pinnacle of making it all worth it, and then all of a sudden it's not important anymore. And so then I started to get entangled in this kind of mental story of maybe I'm not made for this. Maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe this won't be worth it. And it was incredibly painful. And I felt like I spent more energy trying to get out of this entangled mental knot than actually moving towards my dream. Is this resonating with y'all at all? Yeah. So I want to read some scripture that I just thought was really, really interesting for this topic. It's Hebrews 12:1. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that is so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that's marked out for us. Let us throw off everything that hinders the sin that so easily entangles. So the definition of entangled is to make tangled or be confused. And then the second definition is circumstances from which it is difficult to escape. And this confused word, it's very interesting. I actually, in our kind of sales girl world, we don't even like to say the word confused because that feeling of confusion, Brooke Castillo calls it an indulgent emotion. And what that means is, when you are confused, think about when you're in school, okay? You're in school, you're working, you're confused, you're stumped. And what do you do when you're stumped? You stop and you raise your hand. And you say, I need help, right? You stop trying to figure it out and you ask for someone else to come in and save you. And this is typically what happens when people get confused in business. They're working, they get stumped, and then they think, I just need to stop and try to find someone to help me and quote unquote save me versus pushing through that confusion. And so when I read that definition of entangled, I'm like, wow, how smart of the devil to help us entangle our brains, entangle our thoughts in a way that makes us stop thinking the way that we really should be thinking. So these thoughts that people, I think, typically get entangled with is this shouldn't be this hard. Keyword shouldn't. This shouldn't be this hard. What if this isn't worth it? I don't know if this is going to work out for me. And how is it so easy for them? Sometimes I'll see people that are quote unquote newer in this space, or it feels newer to me, and they blow up so quickly. And I'll look at them, this actually happened recently. Someone kind of, teaches women, business principles. And I feel like she blew up so quickly. And I'm like, what on earth? What on earth? How is it so easy for them? Because I feel like the path that we've been on has been so challenging and it just seemed so easy for them. And I started to get entangled again. It's not something that you just get untangled. It kind of comes and goes, right? And so what I want to do is I want to share with you a couple of things that I do to help me get out of that entangled mess and to comb that hair. Like think about a teased knot. You just kind of slowly comb the knot and eventually it comes combed out and it's soft and beautiful again. There's actually one thing that I do that really helps me get untangled. Would you guys like to know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. I go to the things that cannot be questioned. So when I question myself, I go to the things that cannot be questioned. One of those is scripture, and the other thing is the laws of nature. The reason why the law of nature are so critical is because, like, literally, you cannot question it. The law of gravity, okay? No one's questioning the law of gravity. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
No one's questioning the law of motion. We all can sit there collectively and look at the laws of nature as a whole society and say, yes, that is true. And what gets you entangled is the opposite of the truth. It's all these lies and all these stories and all this drama that you attach to the truth. And so when we're looking at the truth, the true that everyone can look at and say that, yes, that is true, we actually separate the stories and the drama and the lies from what's actually true. And so what I want to do today is I want to share with you one of my favorite laws of nature that I consistently come back to over and over and over again whenever I feel entangled. And that is the law of the harvest, which is very simple. It's you reap what you sow. Now there's actually 7 subcategories of the law of the harvest, which I just think is so cool. And so what I want to do is I actually want to share these 7 subcategories, and I want you to notice as I share each and every one, imagine, just picture a tangled knot. And each one of these 7 subcategories is you finding like that loophole to start untangling the knot one by one. You know how when your necklace is tangled and you find that one loophole and it's just like the one that just untangles it. But it takes a few times to get it just right. That's exactly what these 7 sub-principles of the laws of nature or laws of the harvest are. Okay, number 1, you reap only what has been sown, okay? So we can't benefit from something that has not been sown, right? But what you can do is you can actually reap from things that other people have sown. So everything that I've learned about selling has been taught to me by my dad. And what's been really cool is me taking this material and delivering it to the masses is that all of our students and you watching this YouTube video are benefiting from what my dad, Lloyd A., has sown. We've all benefited from that, right? Another thing that's really cool is like other people's content. So think about all of the books that you've read, all the podcasts that you've listened to, all the YouTube videos that you've watched. Think about how much you've benefited and how much you've sped up your results from reaping what other people have sown, other people's experience and other people's knowledge. Elon Musk, apparently, from what I've heard, read 2 books a day to build SpaceX. Like he was able to reap so much of what other people have sown by writing that book. Another thing that you reap that other people have sown is like other things that people have sold, right? Like every life experience that you had growing up, every birthday party you've ever had, every new pair of jeans that you got before school, every new book bag, every Christmas present, every vacation you had is because someone sold something to someone for a profit. Whether it was your direct person that provided for you, maybe your parents were in sales, or your parents worked for somebody that was in sales, and because they sold something, they could pay your parents, and then your parents could provide for you. So you as a child began reaping from what other people have sown. So really take advantage of other people's stuff and what they have sown because you can reap from it. Okay, number 2, you reap the same kind as you sow. You reap the same kind as you sow. So you can't sow corn and reap tomatoes. You can't sow learning and reap selling. You can't sow sharing unintentionally and casually and reap sales. You cannot. You reap sales when you sow selling. And this is the biggest trap I see people in, is that they experience this learning loop and they cannot get out. There are like 4 or 5 people that are coming to my mind right now that are really always in our DMs. They are coming to our challenges. They are telling me that they've listened to podcasts, and I love it so much. There's nothing more that I want than to transfer knowledge. But the problem is that learning feels like working, and it's just not. And so being really clear and doing kind of like a time audit on your life and your needle moving activities, and really just look, am I actually selling? And the cool thing about selling and being really consistent about selling every day is that, like, I want you to think about this is the soil right here. And every time you sell, you are planting a selling seed. And you will reap what you sow. Okay, so here's the seed, and something will come of it. It will. There's 2 things. You will either sell someone and make some money, or you will reap certainty, because you'll sell yourself. You either sell and make money, or you sell yourself. You either sell and make money, or you sell yourself. Now, why is this important? Well, I know, and talk about being entangled, there's nothing worse than believing in something and then starting to sell it, and then you start to lose certainty and lose belief in the thing that you're selling because you started to sell it. Does that make sense? You're like, I literally know what I'm talking about, and the minute you start selling it, you question everything. Well, all selling is instead of telling someone what to do, but reminding them what they get out of what they do. So I know for me, like, we often will talk about the education road and the selling road. And whenever I get kind of entangled mentally about any kind of doubt that I might have, I go hard, and I mean hard, on listing out what people get out of what they do when they learn sales skills. So I'll put sales skills here. That's what people can do, is learn sales skills. What do they get out of what they do? Well, they get out of this is predictability. They become unrecognizable. Of course, they make more money, which leads to who even knows. I mean, I could go off on the 5-star experiences they could take their families on. I think about the Christmas presents that they could give their child. I think about the Disney vacations. I think about the clothes that people get to buy. I think about all the payoffs of making more money. They become better. I really believe that when you learn how to sell, it's impossible for you not to be better. Like, to be a great salesperson, you got to be sharp, okay? So you become better when you can sell better. And I will just list all these things, what people get out of what they do from learning how to sell. And this is what this seeds. It's my certainty. And the reason why this is so important is that selling makes you more certain, and people buy from certain people. And certain people are sold people. Okay, number 3, you reap later than you sow. So have you ever taken a test before and you've crammed for it? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, well, you just got really good at taking tests, but not so good at learning information. So I want you to imagine a farmer who is creeping up on August, okay? The month where it really starts to matter. And he's like, oh no, I have got to hurry up. I got to water the soil. I got to till the soil. I got to make sure everything is, just right and perfect in the soil and this and this. And he's got to hurt. We all know that that's not going to work out, right? We all know that when you rush the process, you're not going to get the same results. And here's the thing about, like, people, when you look at other people's results, especially when you start to see people and you're like, wow, that happened so much faster than it did for me. You likely need the journey more than you need the roadmap. And I'll see people that seem like they've moved so fast. And what I know is this law of the harvest. And I know that you reap later than you sow. And so while I didn't see their journey online, they had to have gone through a journey in order to get to this point. It's impossible for that not to happen because of the law of the harvest. A caterpillar, like, the process that they go through to become a butterfly, they wrap up in a cocoon, and their body, I learned this from Emily Judice, their body literally becomes like soup so that they can form all these new body parts, right? The wings. And when they go to break out of the cocoon, they have to experience that resistance of the cocoon. If you were to see a butterfly trying to get out of the cocoon and you go and try to open it for it, you will prevent the butterfly from flying, because their wings aren't strong enough to be able to fly high in the sky with all their friends. And not to mention, only 5% of caterpillars ever become butterflies. Why am I telling you all this? The journey of the butterfly matters. And when the journey is interrupted by weather or by humans, they don't become butterflies. Or if they do, they have a really sad life of a butterfly that cannot fly. So when you start to see someone get some major success, right? You look at other people and you're like, wow, I feel like everything is so easy for them. There is a journey that's underneath the surface that you don't know about. And when it feels really slow for you, this is the journey that you have to go on in order to see the results, because you reap later than you sow. Not only do you reap later than you sow, here's number 4, you reap greater than you sow. So if you were to plant a sunflower seed, take one seed, plant it in the ground of a sunflower, the sunflower cultivates properly, the sunflower now has 2,000 seeds. 2,000 seeds. So we could take those 2,000 seeds and plant them in the ground, and each one of those seeds becomes a sunflower. Now we have 20,000 seeds. I think about people who do crimes, to be honest. Like, you could do a 5-minute crime and have your life in prison. You reap great. You're like, what? It was only a 5-minute crime. Well, you reap greater than you sow. I also think about like studying properly. So we use the example of cramming for a test. Like, what if you studied properly for a test? Like, genuinely took your time, actually read the whole chapter, actually outlined it and memorized it, and really prepared for the test. Okay, you made a 100 on the test. That's great. But what are the results that are greater than just that 100? Well, you start to develop a new self-image for yourself of you are somebody that can like fully prepare for a test and be excited for a test. You start to change your reputation, right? You become known as the person that is really smart and works really hard. This reputation puts you in a totally different friend group. And now you run with people that also see themselves as someone that is smart and works really hard. And now you start to meet other people that are like that. Like, the whole quality and direction of your life is determined by who you hang out with. And studying for a test, like genuinely study for it and not being the cool kid that crams and just gets by, you start to align yourself with those high-level, high-achieving people that could literally change the trajectory of your whole life in adulthood and who you marry and your children. Like, have you ever thought about the act of properly studying for a test could actually give that payoff of so much greater than just getting the 100? It's a huge deal. And so when you are doing something in the moment that feels hard and feels like it's not worth it, you're going to reap greater than you sow. All right, number 5, you reap in proportion to what you sow. So we did say, right, you plant one sunflower seeds, you get 2,000, you plant one sunflower seed, that sunflower creates 2,000 seeds. Well, if you plant 2,000, then you're going to get 20,000 seeds. And if you plant, you plant 100, you get 20,000 seeds. If you plant more, you get 20. Like, basically, the more that you plant, the more sunflower seeds that you get. The more that you sell, the more results that you will have. You do a little now, you're going to get a little. You do a lot now, you get a lot later. And I think people underestimate the amount of activity that's really required to get a result. I don't know the story Alex Hormozy tells about how someone told him to put signs on people's cars or something to get some leads. And he was like, man, I didn't really get the results that I wanted. And the guy that told him to do it said, well, how many did you put out? And he said, oh, I put out about 300. And the guy said, oh, we just test with at least 3,000. At least 3,000. Like the amount, the quantity of work, the quantity of reps, the quantity of iterations that's really required to actually get a taste of what the results could be is greatly underestimated, especially in this microwave world that we live in. Okay, 2 more. Number 6, we reap harvest of the good only if we persevere. The evil comes on its own. I know my husband's great-grandparents, they're big farmers, and I swear they put more energy in protecting the harvest more than they did actually cultivating the harvest, because they don't have to do anything and the deer are going to come and ruin it, right? And I really think about this when it comes to content. Like, I know that there are seasons, and y'all can tell me if you agree with this, where you're really into personal development, you're really into podcasts, you're really into books, and then you're like, I'm kind of tired. Like, I'm going to take a break and maybe just scroll instead, or watch, just whatever, and watch a little Netflix, go to bed a little later. You just need a break. Are y'all like that sometimes? I can get like that sometimes. And what I notice is when I feel like I need a break or I take a break, the evil comes on its own, baby. That evil be coming. Whether it's just like little comments that maybe I'll hear from someone that usually wouldn't bother me, but I'm off my personal development game. I haven't been guarding my mind and guarding my heart, and so it stings differently than it used to, right? Or maybe a conversation with a spouse, or maybe you start scrolling, and you I know if I get into this rabbit hole of scrolling, I'll see what other people are saying about their work and how they hate their work. Do y'all ever see this? Like they hate their work, they hate their job, they hate their life. All they want to do is not work. And I start to think, oh my gosh, do people not enjoy work? Am I selling something that people don't want? And I'll kind of just get in my head a little bit. And I really have to watch what comes in my mind, because evil will come on its own naturally. You have to guard your mind and guard your heart with everything that you have, so that you can be sharp, and that when you do reap what you sow, you're going to be ready for it. The seventh and final law of the harvest is we can't do anything about last year's harvest, but we can do something about this year's harvest. I know, sometimes I'm like, man, if we started this, what if I didn't go to college and I actually genuinely learned how to sell, and I started this when I was, 19 years old. You think about that sometimes, right? If only I were younger, right? But we can't change that. And honestly, everyone needs to go on a journey, right? You reap later than you sow. You need the journey more than you need the roadmap. So the journey is part of the sowing, so that you can reap. So while you can't do something 20 years ago, what you can do is something today for tomorrow. My dad has always said the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So let me ask you, do you feel a little less entangled? A little bit? Or do you feel like, okay, you know what? I have this drama, I have this comparison, I have these stories, I have this doubt and this wondering. But when I lock in on what is true, I can trust the laws of nature. I can trust the law of the harvest, that what goes in, what comes out. What I eat will come out. What I do will come out. There will be a cause to every single effect. I said, when things feel the hardest, simply remember the law of the harvest. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.